Welcome everybody to jimsguitarlessons.com. We're going to have some fun today with some melodic concepts, some improvisation tips, and how to play with a lot of melody using your major scales. See, major scales are awesome. They're good for everything from playing real fast and fancy and technical things to kind of climax at certain times. They're also there for us to make melodies, and they're there for us to play melodically on the guitar as we express ourselves when we improvise or when we're writing melodies and so on and so forth. So, well, first of all, let's talk about some of the maybe misconceptions about major scales. The first thing is, sure, you're going to learn patterns of major scale, but that's just step one. There's many more steps to it. There's much more that goes into it. You have to know the notes from the scale. You have to know the notes from the chord you're playing over. And you have to learn to put them together with rhythm, dynamics, expression, and at times technique. A lot of players get really consumed with the technical side. They get really consumed with the pattern side of it. Patterns are great, but a pattern is just a mere palette of paint, if you will, if you're an artist. You know, that pattern is there for us to work with and be creative with. Just like if you're to hand an artist a palette of paint. You know, if you've never painted before, you could hand them that palette of paint and it might look like a kindergartner did. But through time and practice and study, it's going to look like maybe Picasso did it. Anyhow, so it's the same concept here. If you know your scales, that's your palette of paint, and you have to learn to work it. You have to learn your strokes. You have to learn what notes go good together, and you have to learn to complement the chord. That's really where it's at with melody, is you want to play notes that complement the chord. And it can be as simple as playing a G chord, a G and a C chord, a G, C, and a D, whatever, just the major chords in a key. Okay, so, well, we're going to assume that you already know your major scale. But if you don't, I just want to play it for you and teach you a G major scale right now. And feel free to stop this video and learn this scale if you don't know it. Alright, anyhow, in the key of G, we have G, A, B, C, E, F sharp, G, and then continuous, it'd be G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And then we can practice it backwards as well. Okay, so that is our G major scale. One more time. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, F sharp, G. Alright, so there's times when I'm teaching a private lesson and I'll teach the major scale to a student and I'll say, alright, well, try to solo with it. You know, you're getting it down pretty well, you've got your fingers wrapped around it, and you're playing it pretty smooth. And a lot of the time, they're like, well, I don't know what to do. You know, okay, let me try. And they just play through the scale, stop once in a while, hold that note. And it sounds somewhat melodic, and you can tell they're trying, but at the same time, it's my job as their teacher to say, okay, that's your palette. Now, we need to take, here's your canvas, here's your palette. We need to make this picture beautiful. We need to make it appealing to the eye. And it's the same premise with playing the guitar or any instrument, or when you improvise on your instrument, is you want to make it appealing to the ear, maybe not the eye, but the ear. So anyways, what we're going to do is we're going to focus now on what's called chord tones, the notes that make chords. So if we're in the key of G, let's take a G chord. A G chord is made from G, B, and D. One more time, G, B, and D. Well, let's take a look at the G chord. G, B, D, G, D, and a high G. Okay, now if my rhythm guitar player, or if let's say I put a track down and I strum the G chord over and over and over, my focus notes would be those notes from the chord. What more perfect notes than the notes that are being played in the chord? There's no more perfect notes than that. So if I were to maybe start my solo, you know, when you play music, it's about choices. Well, today I feel like starting on a G note. Maybe tomorrow it's B. And the next day maybe D. It doesn't matter, but they fit really well over G because that's what makes the chord. So again, write this down, stop the video. Know that the G chord is made from G, B, and a D note. One more time, G, B, and D makes a G chord. So that takes us back to the G major scale. G major scale again is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. So there's plenty of G, B, and D's going on in this pattern. We've got a G, B, D, G, B, B, D, a high G there, and a high B there. So they're all over the place. So if I were called upon to do a solo or melody and so forth, or if I was writing and I knew I was playing over a G chord, I would focus on those notes, but I would also hit other notes too and then slide in or lead into it. You know, if I hit a C note for a second, I could go up to my D or hit that C and go back to B. And it's going to fit really nice over the G chord. If I were to play an F sharp note for just a second and slide it into the G note, that's going to fit really nice. It's not to say that F sharp, if you play the F sharp by itself over the G, it's probably going to sound a little bit unresolved, maybe not so melodic. But if you slide into a chord note, it usually fits pretty well. So here's an example. I'm going to have a G chord played for me so I can just improvise a little bit, play something melodic for you, and you can kind of hear what I'm saying, and I'll kind of talk through it as we do this. So let's go ahead and hear a G chord. 3. Here's a G. There's a D. There's a G there. There's a G. Just played simplistic, tried to play with a certain amount of melody and also a little expression. Try to play the notes with a little bit of, vibrato, a little slide, a little dynamic. That's also another aspect or important aspect a lot of players overlook is, okay, here's the note choice, here's the scale choice, but let's say the expression part of it is left out. We have to play with a certain amount of expression in order for people to feel what we're doing. And that's kind of why we do this. We want people to be touched by it. We want people to enjoy it. All right, so here's another example. In just a moment, I'm going to have a G and C played. Let's talk about that C chord before we do that. The C chord is made of C, E, and G. Again, one more time. C, E, and G. Played together makes a C chord. So if I were to come over here and look at the C shape, the old traditional C, we've got a C, an E, a G, C, and a high E. Standard C chord. Okay, C, E, and G would be the focus notes at this time. So when you hear that transition or when you feel it coming, you're strumming your G chord. Here comes that C. Back to a G chord. 4 beats per chord here. 2, 3, 4, 1, and so on and so forth. What I'm going to try to do this time is during the G chord, I'm going to focus on G, B, and D notes, which make up the G chord. And then when it transitions to the C chord, we're going to focus on C, E, and a G note. Those are the chord tones that are going to fit perfect over the C chord and the G, B, and D for the G chord. Here we go. We're going to go ahead and have G and C played for me now. There's G, B. There's my C. There's a G. C right there. C. That's a B. C. G. There's an E. There we go. Just a little improvisation, little melodic phrasing, utilizing chord tones with a little bit of non-chord tone as lead-in notes. So when you practice your scales, just don't practice a pattern. Think about what you're playing. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Know the notes from the scale. Know the notes that make the chord. Learn to play notes that complement the chord. It's the most melodic way or most effective way to play melodically. It's the most effective way to play melodically with melody. And don't forget your vibrato, slides, dynamics to create that expression as well. So just to kind of sum this up, what we're trying to talk about today one more time is using the major scales effectively and melodically without overplaying. We're trying to play touching phrases, or creative phrases, if you will. And again, we're using chord tones, we're focusing on the chord tones, but we're also working within a major scale structure. Well, thanks for tuning in today. I had a good time talking about this, and I hope you learned something from it, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.